First of all, guys, go and help Shama Sawant. We really need to keep her in the Seattle City Council. And now it's my great honor and pleasure to welcome returning champion, member of the crew, Harvey Kaye. He is author of this great book from my publisher, Zero Books. Check out Against the Web, coming in February. Take hold of our history. Make America radical again. He also teaches democracy at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. There's a pre-austerity department right there.
Yes. They're after three things. First of all,
yes.
I want everyone to know that that book had its beginnings right here.
Tell it.
At this counter.
Yes, indeed.
I said to you, Michael, do you write? Are you writing anything? And you said, yeah. You're writing on the dark web. I said, who are you writing for? And you said, Zero Books. And I said, really? I said, I'm not that familiar. And then you said, you should meet my publisher, my editor.
Doug Lane, the great Doug Lane. Check out Doug Lane's YouTube channel.
You pitched it. Doug and I Skyped. Next thing I knew, we had a contract.
Boom.
So this is that book, that manifesto.
This is a fantastic book. And let me quote from myself.
Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it.
Okay.
Why not? Well, let me, because I actually want to set up a question with my blurb.
You can read Crystal's too if you like.
Well, Crystal, let me just, let's see what does Crystal say? Progressives have often allowed, no, I can't do an impression of her. It'll get there. Progressives have, let me read mine.
Read yours.
Okay. Harvey Kaye is our essential and always engaging guide to owning our progressive history. Oh, this is the part.
Just thought you might want to background
What's the matter?
musical for it.
What's the matter?
Oh, I'm playing
Wait,
music.
this is
An
important.
inside joke here.
This is the question, though.
No, I'm just playing an underbed for music.
I
Make
love
it more
it.
dramatic.
America has a rich, progressive, social democratic history that has been obscured by the right and all too often ignored by the left. And I feel like that is the core of your argument.
Right. Fortunately,
Explain
you didn't
it
say
to
that
us,
before the
please.
book was written, or I wouldn't have had any book to write. Explain that. So here's the thing. So
This is so important, though. Break it down.
45 years of class war from above. I don't understand why everyone isn't just saying that. 45 effing years of class war from above. They came after labor unions in the 70s, and they never gave up doing that. They came after the Voting Rights Act in the 70s, and they never gave up doing that. They came after women's rights, Roe v. Wade in particular, over and over again. So 45 years of this, right? Now, the other fascinating thing about that is that to do that, they staged massive campaigns in favor of deregulating business, liberating business is often what they said, in favor of reducing the powers of the state, in favor of lowering taxes, basically a return to the Gilded Age, and that's what we've come to experience ever since, right?
Right.
Well, to cap that all off, Ronald Reagan did a brilliant job of hijacking the past, literally laid claim to American history at his Republican acceptance speech in 1980. He quoted Thomas Paine, he quoted Abraham Lincoln, and he quoted Franklin Roosevelt. He quoted this progressive story. It actually pissed off George Will, the conservative writer at the Washington Post. He said, "You're not supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to be quoting Edmund Burke." Right?
Of course.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, where were the Democrats, or where was the left? Well, in a sort of knee-jerk kind of way, the idea was to pile on and say, "Oh, this is a perversion of the past, et cetera, et cetera." But they never offered an alternative to it. So conservatives were eager to suppress the past and provide some kind of fantasyland version of it. And the left basically abandoned it, gave it up. So they abandoned the tradition of Thomas Paine. They even abandoned the tradition of Abraham Lincoln. They abandoned the tradition of
A. Philip Randolph.
Of A. Philip Randolph, absolutely.
That's a hero of this show.
And by the way, the significance of it is this.
Doris Day.
What?
Sorry, I'm just throwing names at you. Go ahead.
Dorothy Day, not Doris Day.
Doris Day.
Okay, just for that, I'm going to give a shout out to two of my students, Abby and Guillermo.
Yeah,
who Abby, Guillermo, and Mike, who are probably watching back in Green Bay. And just keep in mind, Michael here is not only a brilliant host, he's also a comedian.
Yes, and sometimes I give your professor a hard time.
Yeah, so here's the thing.
Because Professor Kaye is analogous to Cornel West when he gets rolling with names he likes.
Yes.
So I always thought it would be funny to mix it up a little bit.
I liked it. In
Yeah,
fact,
yeah.
I actually looked at you like, what am I supposed to do? Okay, so the importance of this isn't just that we remember. The remembrance is fundamental.
Yes.
It's also the fact that I've been convinced, I've been trying to tell people for years, that one of the things that Reagan appreciated, which, by the way, is what Lincoln and Roosevelt themselves appreciated, is the fact that Americans do carry with them a kind of deep cultural memory of the promise that was called for by Thomas Paine, that was embedded in the Declaration for all of the sins of the founders themselves. And Americans still hold on to that as a sort of, I'm not going to go psychological on you, but it's in a very deep kind of cultural memory type way. So Americans are when they hear certain kinds of words and see and imagine certain kinds of images, if they can identify with those, they're more capable of acting, in my mind, in a radical fashion, embracing that kind of stuff. Look, Bernie, we don't have to spend the evening talking about Bernie, obviously.
No, we got some sound to get to in the postgame.
Okay.
But explain it.
Here's the thing.
It's important.
It's important to realize that Bernie in some ways was avoiding the story, avoiding history. And he was spending a great deal of time, as people have heard me say before, comparing us to Scandinavia. I have nothing against Scandinavia. It's a critical comparison. But what he failed to do was to remind Americans that social democracy, or in his terms, democratic socialism, is 100% American. Thomas Paine in Agrarian Justice is the godfather of Social Security. Abraham Lincoln not only led us through a civil war and signed the Emancipation Proclamation in response to the working people in the North realizing the imperative of doing so and Southern slaves abandoning their plantations and running to the Northern Alliance. It's also the case that even in the midst of the war, he signed the Homestead Act. Even in the midst of the war, he signed the Morrill Act. The Morrill Act is the land grant act that enabled states to create public universities. Those are social democratic initiatives, right? And then FDR. I mean, we could go on and on in that. The point is, social democracy, democratic socialism, progressivism of the most progressive sort is 100% American, and the Democrats abandoned it. It was like they were running scared from it, either because they were afraid that they would be accused of embracing slaveholding founding fathers, or the fact that Lincoln didn't sign the Emancipation Proclamation soon enough, or Roosevelt didn't end segregation in the South. Whatever it might be, they ran from that. But in running from that, they also run away from the story of the exploitation and oppression that people suffered all those years. And even more significantly, the struggles from below that working people in all their diversity pursued ever since the 1770s. By abandoning those traditions, how are Americans supposed to understand what they're capable of doing themselves?
Right. I mean, I think what is interesting, that actually, it's funny, it does echo what I talked about with Zizek, when Zizek is really interested in the particularities of struggle and then how they become global. So instead of just saying, oh, well, it's all the same, you look into distinct traditions, and then actually through that you see the divisions within. So he was talking about how in India, right, you've got, I mean, and of course, tragedy for all of us, and we'll be talking about this more next week, you have the ascendancy of fascism and Hindutva, and then you have a tradition, and this is actually a fascinating piece of Indian history. People know, and I think now there's a lot of revisionism around Gandhi, which, is another topic. But, people saw, like in the Attenborough movie, that Gandhi spoke against the caste system. And he said they're all children of God. Now, as Zizek reminded me in the conversation, and people should know about the writer of the Indian Constitution, Ambedkar. Now, the Indian Constitution, like the South African one, these are probably just on paper the two most progressive constitutions in the world. And Ambedkar was a lower caste, quote, untouchable, Dalit, who rose his way up. He got a scholarship to Columbia and became a socialist and a Marxist, but also embraced Buddhism and led a mass caste embrace of Buddhism because the Buddha rejected the caste system. And he virulently critiqued Gandhi. He said, we're not children of God. We're fellow citizens. We're not like romantic objects of compassion.
Yeah.
We're going to reject this essentialism. And so Zizek's point, just to bring it back, was that getting into the particularities of the clash within these contexts is where you identify the shared global traditions. And that's what, of course, I'm passionate about. So whether you're talking about the African National Congress or Ambedkar or Thomas Paine or, and so on and so on. So this work in America is quite important. And I don't in any way shy away from, and you also quote Langston Hughes, the dream has not been realized, obviously. But if you reject this other through line, then you reject the notion that we have the resources to overcome it. And if you don't have the resource to overcome it, then we're in a hell of a predicament.
Let me make clear, Thomas Paine himself he loved America.
Yes.
But he always said he was a citizen of the world.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
He took pride in the fact he participated not only in the American Revolution, but also the French Revolution. Yep. And he underestimated the degree to which he actually was the inspiration of the British labor movement in the late 18th century that led on to laborism and socialism.
Right. I love it. I want to just touch on this for a few
Can I
minutes.
ask a question about Thomas Paine?
Anybody can ask questions to Professor
I'm
Kaye.
curious, and maybe you've gotten into this before, but Thomas Paine as the sort of soul of the revolution, right? How much did, like George Washington, how did he regard that?
That's a good question. Most of the founders, the most names like Alexander Hamilton, Gouverneur Morris, they looked at Paine as a pain in the ass because he was so radical. His idea was that we would show the world that people could govern themselves with not only without a king, not only without aristocrats, but without any overlords telling them what to do. And those are folks who were very much intent upon being the overlords,
right?
To make it clear. There was one of the founders who never really, he and Paine always stuck together, and that was Jefferson. Okay. But the difference there is that Paine spoke out vehemently against slavery when he first came into America because he was so shocked that Americans could talk about liberty and continue to practice buying and selling of people. It was impossible for him to understand that. And Jefferson hated slavery, but never gave it up. He hated slavery because he knew what it would do eventually to American life, but he never gave it up. But they did.
He was a monster, though.
He was also really invested in it. Right?
No, it's not a big diversion.
Yeah.
I just, in some ways, I would say reading about Jefferson, because one, you have to historicize everybody and place them in their context. And at least when I read about Jefferson, not to go on a big tangent, but the disconnect in him was even more disgusting because of the
Well, he probably had a sense of how prosperity would judge him more than some of the others.
I think he did.
He lived by the pen, basically.
And he didn't even do it, after he died. I mean, it pretty. But total
in
tangent.
contrast to Washington. But what
Harvey,
I was going to say, sorry.
really quick.
Yes.
What kind of grader are you?
What kind of grader? Am I?
Tough grader, easy
if I
grader?
tell this in public, it could get out.
Well, don't you think there's like a shared history and memory from University of Wisconsin?
Yeah, after 42 years, I think so.
Come on.
I am a very pushy professor.
There you go. I believe that.
But I am not a hard-ass grader.
Ah.
So I push.
So if you get it below a B, you've really effed up.
Well, I'm capable of going below a B, but I also do something which the students who probably tuned in and probably still listening know this. There are courses I collectively grade.
Oh, you bastard.
No.
Whoa.
But those are the courses where the students have literally volunteered to be with me, you might say.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
That's
like
cool.
a course I do on politics and social criticism. It's a workshop on writing opinion.
That's fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
If I was in a class, I'd be like, all right, group assignment. See you guys Monday.
So what it is, they all write, and we do the work. We do the work in class, and basically, as long as it's not just do they come in with the assignment done. Who cares? I mean, that's either up or out.
Right.
But the better question is to what extent they engage each other and enable each other.
That sounds fantastic.
No, it's the most
really
emotionally trying and most satisfying course you can imagine.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. So now I'm doing a course. This senior seminar for my department, and it's basically, you heard me talk about it earlier on Sam's show, and that was, we are going to perform for a group of freshmen, big class of freshmen, we're going to perform this 1941 radio play. We're doing it as a reader's theater on the Bill of Rights. So, that's a collective grade. I can't grade individually when we're a team, basically.
But what if, like, as an example, I'm doing a great reading and Griscom takes it down?
Well, only say where the problem is, you two would be okay.
Yeah, no, obviously.
But if Matt didn't show up, he'd be in trouble.
Okay, right. So
Okay.
David and I are ready to go, and Matt's just
Right.
like,
I had to fill in for
I
someone.
was reading about Thomas Paine.
last time I did it, I had
I'm
to-
sorry. Hey, Professor, I'm sorry I wasn't there, but I was reading about Thomas Paine, bro.
They'd have to bring a bribe. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Sure you want to joke like that on the public version of the show? You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.